If you're intimidated by your xTool F1 Ultra when it comes to making jewelry, this video is for you. Hey, Editor Patrick here. I just wanted to apologize for the audio quality, for all the A-roll, me talking on camera in this video. I had my mic turned up too loud and it caused a bunch of distortion. By the time I realized it, everything was already shot and I wasn't gonna go back and re-record it all. So thanks for bearing with me in this one. I know it's gonna be a little distorted, but there's a lot of great information in here. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy the video. I'm gonna take you from the start to the end, from step one all the way through project completion on how to make jewelry. And this isn't just gonna be a video that's gonna say, use my settings and it'll come out great. That's not what this is about. What this is about is teaching you the skills along the way so you will know why you're using the settings that you're using. So that way you'll know why I chose the settings that I did. Now I will give you my settings so that way you can have those, but overall I want to teach you. I want you to understand why we're picking those settings. We're gonna do a lot of explaining here, and I'm gonna be showing different pieces that kind of show the difference between what an engrave is and what an anneal is. And that's gonna be the biggest thing, is you don't wanna engrave your jewelry, you wanna anneal it. So we're gonna cover all sorts of things like that, but first, let's kind of go over the basics of what you're gonna need. Of course, you're gonna need the laser. Here's my F1 Ultra behind me. You're also gonna need some test cards. These test cards here come from Monarch Pine over on Etsy. I absolutely love Monarch Pine's blanks. Katie is phenomenal to work with. And in fact, she even, when she heard about this video, she wanted to get involved. So she sent over some product, that way I could have that on hand to show you not just what, pretty unused product test cards like this look like, but what used test cards look like. There we go. You can see that these are very well used test cards. That's what this is all about. This silver one got the most use and abuse, and you're gonna need some of these. I would recommend picking up 2 of whatever colors you wanna work with. So if you wanna work with silver, pick up at least 2 of the silver ones. If you wanna work with gold and so on, make sure to pick up enough of those. They're only about $4 a piece. Throw them in your next order them by themselves, whatever, but have some of these on hand. I don't make any money from you buying them down below. Katie doesn't get any extra kickback or any of that. There's no codes here. Just buy her stuff. It's phenomenal quality. Absolutely love it. And those links will be down below. This is going to be your best friend. This right here, this whole card is $4 last time I checked. Whereas this piece of jewelry right here, this necklace, is $3.50. So I can get 1, maybe 2 or 3 tests out of this necklace, or as you can see, dozens and dozens of tests out of the cards. So pick up some cards. You won't regret it. Outside of the cards, you are going to also need some jewelry. Now I'm doing a necklace in this video, but you could use any of her jewelry blanks. She's got rings, different types of necklaces, even some little trinket trays. You'll just need that. And then the other thing to note is this is going to be all done with stainless steel. Her gold and rose gold stainless steel is real stainless steel underneath, but it is actual gold and actual rose gold plated. So it's a little bit harder to get through, a little bit different settings. And then the silver is just pure stainless steel. But for the best result when it comes to jewelry engraving, you're going to want to use stainless steel blanks. Now, when it comes to using the different lasers, you do have 2 different laser sources on the F1 Ultra. You have your blue light and you have your IR/fiber laser. Everything we're doing here is going to be using the fiber laser. The fiber laser is how you actually engrave metal and you mark metal. The blue light is not designed for that whatsoever. So ignore the blue light laser for now on this project and let's just focus on using the fiber laser itself. Okay, so I mentioned that we're going to be annealing instead of engraving. That's my personal preference, but you can do whatever you want. When it comes to marking metal, when you anneal a steel, what you're doing is you're heating up that steel and bringing the carbons in it to the top. That's how you get a nice deep black mark without engraving at all. So it'll be a fairly smooth surface on top. When you engrave, you're actually marking into the metal, and that's going to just make a much deeper engrave, and it can catch on stuff. The reason that I choose to anneal is because if you have a lady that's wearing this necklace and it's hanging down and maybe her dress or her shirt is a little bit more delicate or whatever the material is, you don't want something that's going to be rough and it's going to catch that and snag it and all of that. You want it to be as smooth as possible. It'll be a more professional look, and I think it's the best way to engrave on these blanks. So that's going to be the majority of what I cover here. But if you want to engrave, you absolutely can. In fact, you can use very similar settings, just changing one thing. Now, before we get too far into the weeds here, we are going to jump over to XCS for a few minutes, and I'm going to go over some basics over there with things like creating test grids, what the different settings are, why you want to use some of those settings, and all of that. So let's jump over there, and then we'll come right back here and we'll continue on with kind of going over different things and how to actually get the machine set up and do some of the engraving. Okay, so to begin the project, we're gonna jump into xTool Creative Space. This is the latest version as of when I'm recording in late January 2025. And I'm not gonna go super deep here. What we're gonna do is just go over some basics of XCS that you're gonna need to do basic engraving. If you're wanting to engrave fingerprints, if you're wanting to capture handwriting, stuff like that, I'm not gonna cover that right now because this is kind of like a basics. This is a 101 course. This is not an advanced course. Those other things I will cover in future videos, but up front here, I just want you to know that's not going to be what we cover. We're going to go over things like how to do a simple design with a name using a font on your system. We're going to go over generating text test grids, setting up your engraving settings, and things of that nature. That's what we're going to cover here today in XCS. So we're going to start by creating a new project. I am in my office. I don't have the F1 Ultra hooked up, so we're not actually going to do the engraving and start it from in here, but I want to show you how you can design, and you can design inside, then move out to your laser. But to begin with, we're going to go ahead and just throw some text on the page. I'm going to do what I always do for a test, which is my wife's name. The first thing you're going to want to do is change this to engrave right over here on this side of the screen. If you don't do that, it's just going to do a scored outline. And then we're going to click on this button here and hit align to center. What that's going to do is just drop it right in the center. That's where I prefer to engrave. And so that's what we're going to do. Now we're going to change this font. This would be a very boring font to engrave. I have a lot of go-tos. I get mine from Creative Fabrica. And so that is an option for you. If you don't want to pay for fonts or download fonts or anything like that, there are some fonts that are included in XCS. Like that would be a fun one. That would be unreadable. Dancing Script is kind of a go-to for me if I need to stay within XCS. Blackjack it's called Blackjack, is also a decent one. This is kind of a fun one for maybe a kid's name or something. You've got a couple decent ones in here, but my go-to is Santa Catalina. This is from, like I said, from Creative Fabrica, and I just love the way that this font looks. It's one of our best-selling fonts from where it shows, and this one I use all the time. There's a link in the description for a free trial of Creative Fabrica. If you've not used it, highly recommend it. So that is down there. But we've got a basic graphic here. We just grabbed the text tool, typed it, changed our font. We're gonna resize this. When you're doing a horizontal bar necklace, that's typically going to be about a 4 to 5 millimeter tall engrave. We're going to call this a 4 millimeter tall engrave, and then we're going to realign to center. So now you can see the graphic here. That's going to be about real size, given the size of the work area with the F1 Ultra. So we've got our graphic here, and we are ready to kind of play with some settings. Now, there's going to be a few ways that you can go here. I'm going to give you settings in this video that you can just jump right in and start engraving with. However, you might want to find your own settings at some point. Maybe you don't use Monarch Pine blanks. Maybe you have the black Monarch Pine blanks, or you've got the titanium Monarch Pine blanks. Those are two I don't have, and nor have I tested on. You might want to generate a test grid. So what you would do in that case is highlight whatever you want to do. I love this part of XCS. This is actually better than Lightburn. Lightburn only does test grids with squares, whereas XCS, you can do a test grid with any vector that you select. So you're going to see I select the text, come over to the applications tray, and then material test array. And it makes this big old material test. Now, when I did something, and I'll show you this here, I'll probably shoot video of one happening. I don't know if I am yet, but this right here is one that I just ran, and I only ran one row. I ran it all at 100% power, and all I did was change the speed. You can do that if you want to do power and speed, up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do here, but that's how you would do it. So you'd come in here, and let's say you want to do power and speed. So you could set maybe your power at 50% power. And now you're going to have, if we do 6 rows, we're going to have 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So we're going to have all that there. And our speed, we definitely don't want to go to 10,000 millimeters a second. Let's start at 20 millimeters a second. What I did was 20 millimeters a second, 100 millimeters a second for my max, and 9 rows. Now I also do shrink down the distance between everything, so that way it takes up the least amount of space possible. And then you can hit done. Now, if you don't want to take up this much room on the card, you could, of course, shrink down how many rows you're doing, or how many columns you're doing. Rows, columns, I always get those mixed up, whatever. But like this one here, if you do 5, you're going to do 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. And you shrink this down to 4, 3, 50, 75, and 100. So this just became a lot smaller to engrave, and it will still give you kind of a good range of stuff. So we'll go with this for the sake of this video right now. I'm going to hit done. Now, I don't need the rest of this text on here, not as it is. So personally, I'm going to ungroup. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to drag this up here and drag these over here. Now, I've done this enough to where I know what all of this is going to mean. And I'm going to change these to be engraves instead of scores. Now, I might, if I already know kind of what I want for my settings, I might jump in here and set the settings for the text so that way it engraves better. And I would recommend doing that. And so like for this, you could change it to the fiber at 100% power, 100 millimeters a second, 300 lines per centimeter, crosshatch, and a 45. That is my personal settings that I use when I'm engraving these. And so, that's definitely what I would recommend starting at. And you can kind of use this however you want. You can run this test. If you don't like the way it looks, run another one, run as many test grids as you want, as you're comfortable with using. That is my main recommendation. And now this is ready to run. This will take a few minutes to go, and that will help you to figure out where you need to be. But this is definitely where you start. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all but one of the Marlenes here, because I've already got my settings. Now my settings, when I'm running this, I'm going to be on the fiber IR. I'm going to be at 100% power, 100 millimeters a second, 300 lines per centimeter, a 45-degree angle, and a crosshatch. I've done extensive testing, and this is my favorite settings for when I'm doing a defocused annealing. Now, annealing is when you're essentially heating up the stainless steel and you're bringing some of the carbon up to the surface. It gives you a relatively smooth mark that is not very deep, but it typically is pretty black. So I prefer to anneal whenever I'm doing jewelry. If you're not annealing and you want to just, engrave it, then that is also totally fine. For that, what I would recommend doing is a 90% power, 400 millimeters a second speed, 300 lines per centimeter, 30 frequency, and it won't hurt to do the cross hatching at 45 degrees. And that's going to be in focus if you want to engrave into the material If you don't want to engrave in and you want to anneal, then use the settings that you see here on the screen: 100% power, 100 millimeters a second, 300 lines per centimeter, 30 frequency, 45-degree angle, and crosshatch. But to get the anneal, you're gonna need to be defocused. Now, I'm defocusing 3/8 of an inch. And the reason that you defocus is by pulling that laser out of focus, you're kind of removing some of the potency of the laser, and you're allowing it to just heat the metal up. That is one of the keys for annealing. I've not seen many people talk about annealing with the F1 Ultra, but it's a fiber laser, and annealing is huge in the fiber world whenever it comes to working with steel. So defocus that laser. Go up, you know, like I said, I personally go up 3/8 of an inch out of focus. You can go up or down, doesn't matter. I go up, I go up. It's just easier that way. I have a set of setup blocks, and I just set my 3/8 setup block on top of the material that I'm engraving, and I focus up by that 3/8 of an inch. And from there, I'm ready to engrave. So that is what I recommend. Defocus that 3/8 of an inch, use these settings, see what you like. I personally recommend using test cards. You don't have to use a test card. You can absolutely engrave this right on a piece of jewelry. In fact, later in the video, you'll see me engraving a piece of jewelry with these settings. It's going to come out great. And that's definitely what I would recommend to start with, though, is not jewelry, is the test cards, because you have a lot of surface area. You know, you've got this much surface area, and it's $4 for the card from Monarch Pine. So you can get a lot of engraving out of that one area. Now, we're not done yet here in XCS. I also want to show you a couple of tips for framing. So obviously you have your standard framing. You can hit the button, it frames the rectangle on the Ultra, but you can also click these 3 dots and change it to outline. By changing it to outline, it is going to engrave trace the outline of what you're engraving. So that will make it easier to align. I always will outline engrave whenever I'm doing a piece of jewelry, because by doing an outline engrave, that is allowing me to see the actual graphic just about at actual size on the piece. So I can really dial in my placement, and we'll cover all that when we're out at the laser, but definitely do that. And then the last thing I want to show you is smart engraving. So if we go to process right now, as is, this engraving will take 11 seconds. But if we change it from the auto to smart engraving, this engraving will cut down to 5 seconds. Now, 11 seconds versus 5 seconds, you might be saying, Patrick, that's not a big time savings. When you're at a show, when you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 things lined up, saving 5 seconds on 10 items, that's 50 seconds right there. And that's turning and burning. That's getting things out the door quick. And on a smaller thing, like on a necklace, that's not a lot of time saved. But if you're doing something larger, if you're doing a heart jewelry tray or anything else that's bigger, you're talking you have minutes saved on some engraves. So definitely use Smart Engrave. That will have you set up to engrave and send this from XCS to your laser. Now that we've covered kind of everything you need to know here in XCS, let's go ahead and jump over to the laser, and I will show you running some tests on some of the test cards, as well as actually sending the final job to the laser, so you can go from there and be ready to engrave. So when it comes to your setup, I'm going to teach you, like I said, how to anneal. There's not much online about annealing with the F1 Ultra. It's a very, very well-known and documented process on normal fiber lasers, but xTool makes it a little more difficult to dial things in. But I've done that work so you don't have to. The biggest thing you're going to want to do is defocus your laser. You might say, Patrick, why am I defocusing my laser? Well, when you defocus your laser, you're broadening your beam. You're also making it a little bit less potent, so that way you're more so transferring heat instead of engraving into the material. And that's what I've done here on a lot of these things. and you can, I can feel the difference between an engrave and an anneal. It's a lot harder to see it on camera, but just kind of do some testing yourself and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, when it comes to defocusing, I use these guys. These are some little setup blocks that I have from my woodworking side of things, but they are very precise. So this right here is a 3/8 inch setup block. I've also got over here a 1/4 inch setup block. And the reason I have both of these out is I use both of them. So when we are going to be marking a silver pendant, we're going to be using the 3/8 setup block, pulling it 3/8 inch out of focus as you see on screen here. But when we're doing any of the rose gold or the gold, we can use a 1/4 inch. Reason being, we've got to get through that top layer of rose gold or gold in order to get down to the stainless. So we need a little bit more power to do that. So we are a little bit more in focus on the rose gold and gold, a little bit more out of focus on the silver. So, I mean, this kit was maybe $30 on Amazon. There will be a link down in the description below. You can pick one up, but I highly recommend it. It comes in this whole kit here, so you'll get a lot for it, and like I said, highly recommend doing that. Now, settings wise, you're going to be setting to 100% power, 100 millimeters a second speed, 300 lines per centimeter, 30 kilohertz for your frequency, and then make sure you're running the latest version of XCS. You're gonna drop down that advanced tab. You're gonna set it to 45-degree angle and a crosshatch pattern. All of this is gonna combine to give you the best quality engrave possible, the easiest, and then make sure that you, just like we talked about when I was in the XCS portion of this video, make sure that you toggle on that smart fill engraving. That will save you time and make things a lot easier on you as you're engraving. Now, I've had some people ask me, does it only engrave black? The answer is no. You can see here, if I can get the right angle there, there's some like lighter color engravings, some darker color engravings, and kind of just whatever you need it to be. Now, you're gonna find that by doing the material test arrays. So draw some 2x2, 5x5 millimeter squares and do a big material test array where you're testing different power settings and different speed settings, and you'll be able to find what works best for you. I personally only engrave in black or very dark, so I don't have those settings on hand. It's gonna kind of vary material to material as well. So use the steps that I'm showing you here in this video for making that and allowing you to kind of get those varied colors that you can see right here or here. Kind of see a little bit different colors in that. And you can even, on the silver, you can even get some like light white color, stuff like that. But overall, the black stands out the most, so that's what I focus on personally. Now, once you've got your material test array engraved on a piece or annealed on a piece, like you can see right here, you just want to take and look at that and kind of pick what you like the most. I like a different one than what my wife thinks, and I'm going with her because she's the one who would be wearing this stuff, not me. But just kind of look at it and see what is overburned, what is not overburned. There's really no right or wrong answer. Whatever you think looks best, go with it. And so take a look at that test array and make sure to test it on various different substrates. So the same settings that I use on the silver does not work on the gold and rose gold, at least until you change that focus height. And so I tried it at the same focus. I tried to make it as easy as possible and keep it at 3/8 inch defocus for it all, but 3/8 inch defocus looks best on silver and 1/4 inch looks best on the rose gold and the gold. So you're gonna have to play around a little bit, play around with your focus height, play around with your power and your speed, and you'll find the exact right settings for you. By this point, you should have a test card completed and done. You should be able to look at that test card and find the right settings for you. And now it's time to move on over to doing an actual piece of jewelry. At the end of the day, if this piece of jewelry messes up, it's okay. The blanks are not super expensive, and we've done everything we can in order to get to this point, so that way you shouldn't mess it up. But it still happens. I've messed up stuff for clients on site when I was at a craft show doing an engrave. It's not the end of the world. We all make mistakes. It happens. So if it happens to you, don't beat yourself up. Take what you found, learn from it, and try again. We're gonna go ahead and take our necklace here. We're gonna put it on the laser, and we're gonna use the framing function to get it aligned. Now what I'm gonna do, and you'll see kind of a big rectangle, is I'm gonna take a pair of calipers, just like these, and I'm gonna measure. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna measure the outside of the piece of jewelry, and I'm gonna measure the height. I'm gonna draw a box in XCS and have it framed. We're not gonna engrave that box, but we're gonna draw it and have it framed so that way we can easily align this piece of metal to the laser. So instead of just trying to align the graphic, if you can align the actual shape of the jewelry that you're engraving, it'll be a lot easier to align to the inside of the shape that you drew than anything else. So we're gonna put this on the laser, we're gonna get it aligned, and then we're going to be ready to send our file to the laser and get it engraved. So here you can see me aligning it up using that box. The blue light here is so low power, it's not gonna do anything. So you can use it to get that perfect alignment. And this is how I really recommend doing it, is by drawing the outside shape and going. And here you can see a real-time engraving. I have not sped this up one bit. So this is exactly how long it would take you to engrave this at your home or on site. I left that engraving for you in real time. So you saw exactly how long it took to engrave that, and it was literally seconds. And that's how long it takes on the F1 Ultra. The regular F1, which I do have right over here at a frame, that would take a little bit longer, but the F1 Ultra is going to be a lot faster because it's a 20 watt fiber instead of a 2 watt infrared diode, essentially. But that's it. If you followed here step by step from sourcing your materials to doing the test grids and eventually doing a piece of jewelry, you're done. That's it. It really isn't that hard. It's a pretty simple process start to finish, and I hope this video was a help to you. Again, thanks to Katie at Monarch Pine for sending some of her blanks out for us to use, and trust me, I was using Katie long before she sent anything out. I didn't ask her to send anything out. She offered because she wants you guys to be able to engrave these blanks as well as anybody else's blanks with confidence. So thanks again, Katie. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up. If you want to see other types of videos, leave some comments in the description below. And also be sure to hit the subscribe button so you're notified, as well as the bell when you're notified when we release new videos. I will be working on a video like this for the F1 in the future. I don't know exactly when in my schedule that's going to be coming out, but I will be working on that. Here's the thing though. You can take everything that I taught you here today outside of the settings and use that on the F1. You can generate your test array, you can frame it, you can do everything else that I showed you in this video and use it on your F1. You're just gonna need different settings. I would recommend starting down in the 3 to 4 millimeters a second range at 100% power. Don't worry about trying to crosshatch or any of that. Still use the same smart fill settings, but 3 to 4 millimeters a second. Build your test grid and test it on one of the cards. Once you do that, you'll know exactly what settings you need to use and you'll be well on your way. So while this video is focused on the F1 Ultra, the techniques will still work on the F1. Before you go, if you have any other issues with your laser, with your F1, with your F1 Ultra, or any of that, there's a link in the description below to my training course. That training course is one-on-one where I work with you over a video call for 1 hour. We can extend it if necessary to help you work through your problems. I've helped numerous people get over some issues that they have and really gain the confidence to make jewelry like this. We've made thousands of dollars on jewelry like this between just 2 craft shows, and now we're in 2 different stores in our city and we're expanding even more. Soon you'll be able to buy our stuff on Amazon, or it's already on Etsy and different places like that. If you lack the confidence and you're saying, I just don't know exactly how to go forward, you can book that appointment with me. I can help train you one-on-one. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. I know this is a little bit of a longer one, but I really do appreciate you making it all the way to the end. Thank you again. We'll catch you in the next one.